Good afternoon and welcome to the Full Scottish from Broadcasting Scotland. My name is Naina Bhardfwaj. Our guest this week is Glasgow South West MP Chris Stevens. Welcome.
Thank you.
We'll start the show with coverage of yesterday's All Under One banner demonstration in Dundee. So tell us, Stephen, what are your initial thoughts to this? What do you think is going to happen with Brexit and how is it going to affect Scotland?
Well, what's going to happen with Brexit is I can't see any circumstances in which any deal can command the support of a majority of people in the House of Commons. Certainly the direction of travel the Conservative governments, and we saw this great Chequers plan revealed, and then within days it started to unravel within the hardliners and the Tory party. And I think there's a very good chance that there might not be a deal at all. So despite all the spin we've heard today from Dominic Raab and Jeremy Hunt over the weekend, I'm just not convinced that the UK government can pull a deal off.
Right, and do you think eventually there's going to be a U-turn? Will things eventually look up? What steps need to be taken to make sure that happens?
I mean, my view, and it's just my view, if there's no deal, then Article 15 needs to be suspended and there needs to be a general election to allow political parties to present a view of how to fix this. I certainly don't fear a general election in those circumstances, and I think that the people are going to need a voice. We had a referendum where there was no vision of what a post-Brexit UK would look like. And in those circumstances, we've had the hardliners and the Tory party presenting a vision which I do not believe commands the support of the majority of people. I don't believe people in Scotland or indeed in other parts of the UK want an inward-looking vision to the world. They don't want free trade deals which would put public services open to privatisation. They don't want to see workers' rights rolled back or environmental or consumer rights rolled back. But that's the dangers that are going to happen, and where these hardliners and the Tory party want to take Scotland and the UK, I think that that is not what people support.
Okay. And EU citizens at the moment are being uncertain about their future. They're not sure what the future holds for them. And we've seen countless cases pop up recently in the media of the Home Office refusing individual cases. So what are your thoughts on this as well?
Well, I mean, we deal with a number of immigration cases. I had a constituent yesterday who's waited 4 years. She's submitted a claim for asylum due to trafficking. She's waited 4 years for the Home Office to tell her whether her claim is successful or not. I think that is disgraceful. And we will be contacting the Home Office this week to make our feelings very plain on the matter. Obviously, the big concern we have in Glasgow and in my constituency is the actions of the asylum accommodation contractor Serco, who have despicably for weeks now sent threatening letters to asylum seekers telling them to remove themselves from accommodation. Asylum seekers who, despite the Serco spin, who are claiming that these asylum seekers are failed, are not failed. They have claims which are still to be assessed by the Home Office, or they have registered appeals to original decisions. So I think we find that there's 300 asylum seekers in this city, at least over 100 identified, who have submitted a claim which is still live, who have been threatened in this way. And certainly one of my constituents, you may have seen, she was on television a week or so back, who, thanks to the help of Mike Daly and the Govan Law Centre, is going to the Court of Session to stop an eviction. This is a woman who, because of the stress and strains that Serco were putting her under, she had a miscarriage. And I think that's a tragic set of events, and I think that Serco should be held responsible for their incompetence, their aggressive behaviour. And if there's one individual or group who should be evicted and dumped in this city, then it's this multinational company, Serco, who are making profits in the backs of the most vulnerable in our society.
Okay. And the SNP wants to devolve powers on migration in general. How do you think this would impact processes and help vulnerable victims?
Well, it would certainly be a far more respectful process. I've had cases of constituents who have been refused asylum because they come into the country in a false passport. Well, of course they come into the country in a false passport. That was the only reason they could flee their country of origin in the very first place. We have, I think, that what should happen now is that I have seen no evidence that the private sector getting involved in any of this has helped at all. I think we should go back to what was happening, which was a good system, where the local authority and other public bodies look after asylum accommodation and look after the needs of asylum seekers, because it's a fairer way and it's a more respectful way, and asylum seekers don't feel threatened. Asylum seekers shouldn't feel threatened when Serco come to asylum accommodation, sometimes using the police as a cover to threaten individuals. Now, police don't threaten me, but you're talking about people who've come from other parts of the world where a man in uniform means something completely different to what it would mean to you or I. So I think that we need to devolve immigration, and I would like to see the asylum accommodation contract devolved to the Scottish Parliament so we can deal with people in a fairer and more respectful way.
Sure. And it's not just migrants who are facing a hostile environment at the moment.
Sure.
So a Freedom of Information request by the Department of Work and Pensions campaigner Gail Ward showed that 100 people a day are dying under the new universal credits regime. So that's 10 times higher than it was under Job Seekers Allowance. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm a member of the Department of Work and Pensions Select Committee, and we look at different aspects to universal credit all the time, and I think we've managed to secure changes in terms of, firstly, the wait for an initial claim to be paid, which was 6 weeks, and sometimes I know of some constituents who've waited longer, some 10, 12 weeks, who've waited for a universal credit payment. So we've secured changes there. I think that what we have to do as a select committee is we need to continue to look at different aspects of universal credit and seek changes, send reports to the government so that they're having to respond all the time, and I think we've been fairly successful at that. And one of the things we did, which came out a couple of weeks ago, is that we looked at how universal credit impacts claimants who have suffered domestic abuse, whether it's economic abuse or domestic violence or other things. And what's come out there is that the Select Committee is really pushing the UK government hard to adopt what the Scottish government want to do, and that is the issue of split payments and making sure that the main carer receives the money in the same way as they used to, or I do with a child benefit, that the main carer of the children should be the person that gets money. So there's various aspects of universal credit. Obviously, what I'm doing as a constituency MP is that we've had the first of our universal credit public sessions for the public and for organisations like housing associations to come in, so we can agree what the problems are going to be and how we can deal with these problems. We're going to be doing that as a constituency office. We're going to be doing that over the next few weeks, before, during and after universal credit full service rollout comes into the Glasgow South West constituency. So that is a major challenge for members of Parliament, is to dealing with universal credit. I think that whilst everyone agrees that the theory is right, you can't, it's not going to work if they keep cutting staff and they keep making decisions and allowing decisions to be made where people are not person. There's no consistency at all to it. My preference would be to pause, that they would have to pause it and fix all of these problems. But if they're not going to do that, then it's incumbent on us in the Select Committee to keep challenging them in every single aspect of universal credit.
So meanwhile, whilst there have been cuts here, there has been a pay rise of at least 9% for NHS employees by unions in Scotland, and have formally accepted this. So how much of a difference do you think that is going to be making, this 9%? How much of a difference is it going to make to people on the ground? Well,
it's a start, because it's very important that the public sector pay cap ends. And certainly I think that the Scottish Government approach in negotiating with trade unions has been a far better approach than what the UK Government have done, which I'll come on to in a second. Breaking the public sector pay cap will allow public sector workers to catch up on their pay and to catch up on the pay that they've lost over the last 8 years. The approach that the UK Government has taken is that they have only funded, and this has been confirmed by parliamentary answers, they have only funded UK Government departments by 1% across the board. And it's up to those individual UK Government departments to find the savings to fund a higher pay increase. But they're at it, because what the Treasury have said to the civil servants, trade union PCS, is that they're wanted to cap at 1.5%, and then they're going to allow or ask government departments to find savings elsewhere. What we require, I think, is the Westminster Government to fully fund an end to the public sector pay cap and not have government departments, as we're seeing in a Westminster context, going around trying to find those savings. The Scottish model, I think, is better, is that, you know, working in social partnership with trade unions to see how we can end the public sector pay cap, and I'm absolutely delighted that the Scottish Government's done that. And what is interesting about that is that there's now real evidence that employees who work for the UK Government departments are now applying for vacancies in Scottish Government departments, fully as a result of the Scottish Government ending the public sector pay cap.
Okay. And what specific areas are going to be targeted at the moment as a result of this 9% increase?
Well, I mean, that's obviously for the NHS to sort out. I mean, certainly, I think that gives, looking at it from a public sector worker view, I think the fact that there's going to be a 9% increase will give NHS workers this stability to look at their lives. They can make purchases, they could maybe stock up on food as Brexit comes down the line, because it's quite clear to people, if you get into supermarkets, that it's quite clear people are, with a bit extra money, are starting to stock up in the result of a potential no deal.
Right. And it says at least 9%, so do you think this is going to increase in the future?
Well, it should increase in the future, but that should be a negotiation between the trade unions and the Scottish Government and the NHS, and that's certainly the approach everybody else should be taking.
Okay. And it has also been revealed recently that a Tory councillor has not been disciplined for bigotry and Islamophobia in his party recently. This is one of several cases. There's been discrimination against travellers, against the working class, against the LGBT community within the Tory party. So what do you think needs to be done about this?
Well, I think that we need to continue to expose the extremist views that we find in the Tory party in Scotland. I think that we've got a nickname for just about every Scottish Conservative MP now. They are a hard line. I think that what we've seen is bigotry, We've seen Islamophobia, we've seen anti-Catholic rhetoric, we have seen, as you've said, anti-working class rhetoric. I think that we need to continue to expose that this cute and cuddly so-called centrist Tory party in Scotland, when you scratch beneath the surface, very much is not the case, and that these are hardline, right-wing, bigoted individuals. And I think that we need to continue to expose them for what they are, because I do not believe that they represent the people who voted for them in the last couple of years.
Right, and this seems to be an internal issue within the party. So do you think kicking out members of the party is the right thing to do, or does something need to be done?
Well, I think that the Tory party should show some leadership, and if they find that there's any bigoted behaviour, those individuals should be disciplined, and in some cases would require expulsion. That's absolutely clear to me. The fact that they don't do that, I think, I find troubling. I find it troubling that some elements of the media seem to allow the Conservative Party in Scotland to get away with this. Is that they report things, they then don't question the leaders. The leaders tend to get away with these sorts of hard questions. If this was someone in the Scottish National Party who had those views, it's very clear that the newspapers would be all over this. The First Minister would be getting asked to comment, and other senior people in the party would be getting asked to comment. But it seems that there seems to be one rule applying to the SNP or indeed the Labour Party on this. But when it comes to Conservative politicians, it seems to be, I don't know whether the media seems to think that it's now expected to have some sort of extremist views in the Conservative Party. But I think that they should be held to the same standard as the rest of us.
Sure. And what do you think about diversity training, for example? Do you think that's an answer, or do you think...
Well, you have to remember that one Conservative MP refused diversity training from Show Racism the Red Card, who offered that particular individual training, and the individual refused that training. So I think that that's only part of the answer. I think that there has to be some element of training. It would depend on the circumstances, depends on the individual case that a political party has in front of it. But diversity training is obviously just part of that. But there is some behaviour which, my view, should lead to the ultimate sanction, which is an expulsion from a political party. Now, I don't know all the ins and outs of all of those cases, but I find it curious that there was no real pressure applied to the Conservative Party as to why one Scottish Tory MP refused diversity training.
Right, okay. So what else do you think needs to be done if they refuse diversity training? What else?
Well, we need to continue to expose them, and the public need to know that these are that the individuals that they are being asked to support in an election campaign hold these views, that these views do not represent their views, and that they should not vote for the Conservative Party in Scotland. I think that we are seeing a rather dangerous element within the Conservative Party in Scotland who hold extremist views, and I think that we need to continue to expose them.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. We do appreciate it. And that's it for this week. Thank you to Chris for joining us, and thank you to you for watching. We also have more information about Broadcasting Scotland and our programmes, which you can visit on our website www.broadcastingscotland.scot for £5 a month, which allows us to keep making our programmes. Look out for Scotland at 7 throughout the week on Broadcasting Scotland, and the Full Scottish will be back again next Sunday at noon. And thank you, and see you next week. And before we go, we also have Sarah Mackey for the Dundee video to thank. So thank you very much for including that as well. Take care. Goodbye.